Pull harder, cowards! Garrett Sullivan's voice echoed through the crowded hallway as he and Lance Rodriguez yanked Savannah Hayes' arms in opposite directions. The petite girl was stretched like a rope between them, her books scattered across the polished floor, her white t-shirt torn at the shoulder. Students crowded around, laughing and pulling out phones to record. But what they couldn't see was the live stream display on Savannah's phone showing 2,847 viewers watching, and a flood of comments. Someone call 911. Savannah didn't cry or beg. She looked straight into her camera and whispered, "You're all seeing this, right?" Garrett sneered. "Talking to who, scholarship girl?" Savannah smiled coldly. "To 2,800 witnesses." The hallway erupted in confused murmurs as students tried to understand what she meant. Lance tightened his grip on her left arm, his varsity jacket straining against his oversized frame. "She's talking crazy, bro," he grunted, giving her arm another violent jerk that made several onlookers wince. But Savannah's phone remained steady in her free hand, the front-facing camera capturing everything at the perfect angle. The live stream counter climbed to 3,000 viewers, then 3,200. The comments section exploding with outrage and demands for someone to intervene. If you've ever felt powerless against injustice, hit that like button to support those who dare to stand up. Share this story with friends so they know no one has to endure violence in silence. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage and modern justice, because in the digital age, truth cannot be hidden. 3 weeks earlier, Savannah had been invisible at Westfield Academy, just another scholarship student trying to blend into the background of Texas's most prestigious private school. Her acceptance letter had been a miracle, a full ride, based on academic merit that her single mother could never have afforded otherwise. But invisibility, she quickly learned, was impossible when you were the only student who took the city bus while everyone else drove BMWs and Mercedes to school. The divide wasn't just economic, it was cultural, social, and apparently now violent. The harassment had started small. Whispered comments about her second-hand clothes, accidentally spilled drinks on her homework, deliberate shoulder bumps in the hallway that sent her stumbling into lockers. Garrett Sullivan, son of Vice Principal Richard Sullivan, had made it his personal mission to remind Savannah daily that she didn't belong. His reasoning was simple. If scholarship students felt comfortable, they might think they were equals. That couldn't be allowed. But Garrett had underestimated his target. While he saw a quiet girl who kept her head down, Savannah was actually studying him, learning his patterns, documenting his behavior. Her seemingly innocent habit of always having her phone out wasn't teenage addiction, it was preparation. The specialized live streaming app she used wasn't typical social media either. It was a secure platform designed for investigative journalists and law enforcement, one that automatically backed up footage to encrypted cloud servers with legal timestamps that couldn't be altered even if the device was destroyed. The escalation had been methodical. First, Garrett had recruited Lance Rodriguez, whose football scholarship depended on staying in Garrett's good graces. Together, they'd moved beyond verbal harassment to property destruction, stomping on her lunch, accidentally knocking her books into mud puddles, even keying the word poor into her locker. Each incident had been carefully recorded, though no one realized it. Savannah's phone case looked standard, but was actually military-grade shock protection, and her seemingly casual way of holding it during confrontations ensured optimal camera angles for evidence collection. The breaking point came when Garrett recruited a third conspirator, Brianna Walsh, queen of the school's social media hierarchy. Brianna's specialty was cyber warfare, creating fake accounts to spread rumors, doctoring photos to embarrass targets, and organizing digital mob attacks that could destroy reputations overnight. When Savannah's private social media accounts suddenly exploded with notifications, she knew the campaign had entered a new phase. The manufactured scandal was sophisticated. Doctored screenshots suggested Savannah had been selling test answers to struggling students. Fake text conversations implied she'd been trading sexual favors for better grades. Anonymous accounts spread rumors that her scholarship was actually need-based charity, not merit-based achievement. Within hours, her reputation was in ruins. Teachers were giving her suspicious looks, and even sympathetic classmates kept their distance to avoid being associated with the controversy. That's when Savannah activated her real plan. The live streaming app she'd been using had a feature most people didn't know about: the ability to build a follower base among verified law enforcement accounts, journalists, and legal activists. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd been carefully cultivating an audience of people who understood evidence, documentation, and the legal implications of what they were witnessing. When she went live each morning, it wasn't for entertainment, it was for protection. The app Savannah used represented cutting-edge security technology designed for journalists working in dangerous environments and law enforcement conducting sensitive operations. This live streaming platform automatically backed up video to encrypted cloud servers with legal timestamps, featured GPS location sharing with emergency contacts, and maintained direct connections to law enforcement agencies. Every act of violence captured would have legal validity and couldn't be deleted even if the device was destroyed, creating an unassailable chain of evidence for prosecution. The morning of the attack, Savannah had sensed something different in the air. Garrett and Lance had been whispering more intensely than usual, and Brianna's social media assault had reached fever pitch. Anonymous accounts were now posting her home address, her mother's workplace, even photos of her walking to the bus stop. The message was clear. They were done playing games. It was time for a physical confrontation that would cement her status as untouchable. What they didn't realize was that Savannah had been preparing for this moment since her first day at Westfield. The jiu-jitsu classes she'd taken weren't just for fitness. They were practical preparation for a world where being small and female often meant being a target. Her instructor, a former police officer, had taught her that the best self-defense wasn't about winning fights. It was about creating opportunities to escape while gathering evidence for legal consequences later. The confrontation began during the lunch break transition, when hallways were crowded but supervision was minimal. Garrett approached with Lance flanking him, their body language already aggressive. Students instinctively formed a circle, sensing drama was about to unfold. Phones came out immediately, but none of those recordings would have the professional quality and legal validity of Savannah's carefully positioned live stream. "Time for your reality check, scholarship girl," Garrett announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. His voice carried the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences, whose father's position and family's donations had always provided a safety net for his worst impulses. Lance cracked his knuckles, a gesture meant to intimidate that only revealed how little he understood about what was actually happening. Savannah's response was to adjust her phone's angle slightly and speak directly to her hidden audience. "Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I'm about to be assaulted by Garrett Sullivan, son of Vice Principal Richard Sullivan, and Lance Rodriguez, both students at Westfield Academy in Dallas, Texas. The time is 12:37 p.m. on Friday, October 15th. Her calm, professional tone confused the gathering crowd, but sent the live stream comments into overdrive. Law enforcement viewers were already noting the timestamp and location. Garrett's face twisted with rage at being identified so formally. "Who do you think you're talking to?" he snarled, stepping closer. The circle of students tightened, phones recording from every angle, but none of them understood they were witnessing a carefully orchestrated moment of justice. Savannah's follower count had climbed past 4,000, with comments flooding in from verified accounts belonging to police officers, prosecutors, and legal advocates across the country. "I'm talking to 4,137 witnesses," Savannah replied calmly, never breaking eye contact with Garrett, "all of whom can see your face clearly and are currently documenting this incident for legal purposes." The live stream counter proved her point, climbing steadily as viewers shared the stream with colleagues and contacts in law enforcement. That's when Garrett made his fatal mistake. Enraged by her composure and confused by her confidence, he grabbed her left arm with both hands. "Let's see how tough you are when you can't hide behind your phone," he growled. Lance, following his leader's example, seized her right arm with enough force to leave fingerprint bruises. Together, they began pulling her in opposite directions, creating the grotesque spectacle that would become the most viral evidence of school violence in social media history. The physical assault lasted exactly 43 seconds, each moment captured in high-definition detail with legal-grade timestamp verification. Savannah's jiu-jitsu training became evident as she used their own momentum against them. But more importantly, her strategic thinking ensured that every moment of their attack was documented from the optimal angle. The livestream platform's automatic features were already sending location alerts to local emergency services, while the growing audience of law enforcement viewers was making their own calls to Dallas police. What happened next would change everything, not just for Savannah, Garrett, and Lance, but for the entire culture of privileged immunity that had protected bullies like them for years. The confrontation was about to become a case study in how modern technology could level the playing field between the powerful and the powerless, between those who had always operated with impunity and those who had been forced to suffer in silence. But Savannah's plan was more sophisticated than simply documenting the assault. She had been building toward this moment for weeks, gathering evidence of a systematic pattern of harassment that went far beyond typical teenage bullying. What the livestream audience was about to witness was the culmination of a carefully constructed legal case, one that would expose not just individual bullies, but the institutional failures that enabled them. The students surrounding them had no idea they were about to witness history being made. That this moment would become a turning point in how schools, law enforcement, and society itself dealt with violence against the vulnerable. They saw entertainment. Savannah saw justice. They saw drama. She saw evidence. They saw a fight. She saw a revolution beginning with the simple act of refusing to suffer in silence. The turning point came when Lance, frustrated by Savannah's unusual calm, decided to escalate beyond simple arm-pulling. "She's not even fighting back," he complained to Garrett, his grip tightening painfully on her wrist. "Let's make her scream." What he didn't realize was that his words had just provided additional evidence of premeditated assault to over 5,000 viewers, including Detective Maria Santos of the Dallas Police Department, who was already dispatching units to Westfield Academy. Savannah felt the shift in their energy before they acted on it. Lance released her arm only to grab the front of her shirt, while Garrett moved behind her, attempting to put her in a chokehold. This was the moment she had been preparing for, not just in jiu-jitsu class, but mentally and strategically. Her instructor's voice echoed in her mind. Use their size against them. Use their overconfidence as a weapon. What happened next took less than 5 seconds, but would be analyzed frame by law enforcement training academies for years to come. As Lance pulled her forward by her shirt, and Garrett wrapped his arm around her throat from behind, Savannah executed a perfect jiu-jitsu counter. She grabbed Lance's wrist with both hands, stepped back into Garrett to disrupt his balance, then used Lance's forward momentum to throw him over her shoulder. He crashed into Garrett, and both boys went down in a tangle of limbs and bruised egos. The crowd exploded in shocked gasps and nervous laughter. Phones captured every angle, but none with the professional quality and legal timestamp of Savannah's live stream. She stood over her attackers, her phone still perfectly positioned, addressing her audience with the same calm professionalism. As you can see, I've defended myself against assault using minimal necessary force. Both attackers are uninjured but neutralized. But Garrett wasn't finished. Humiliated in front of the entire school and enraged by his spectacular failure, he scrambled to his feet with murder in his eyes. "You're dead," he snarled, reaching into his backpack. The crowd scattered as he pulled out what looked like a tactical pen, though Savannah recognized it as an expensive self-defense weapon his father had probably bought him. "I'm going to make you wish you'd never been born." This threat, captured in crystal-clear audio and video, pushed the situation into felony territory. Unknown to Garrett, his words had just provided evidence for charges of terroristic threatening and assault with a deadly weapon. Detective Santos, watching the live stream from her patrol car 3 blocks away, increased her speed and called for backup. Savannah reached into her jacket pocket and activated a small device that most people would mistake for a fitness tracker. The panic button she carried was designed for journalists working in hostile environments and civil rights workers facing threats. It sent her exact GPS coordinates to emergency services while simultaneously alerting her emergency contacts, which included her mother, her jiu-jitsu instructor, and a civil rights attorney who had been following her case. The device represented the latest in personal safety technology, featuring GPS tracking that pinpointed location within 3 feet, silent alarm capabilities that alerted emergency services without escalating dangerous situations, and automatic data backup that preserved evidence even if the primary device was destroyed. Originally developed for war correspondents and human rights investigators, this technology was now protecting a 17-year-old girl whose only crime was refusing to accept bullying as inevitable. "Garrett Sullivan," Savannah said, her voice carrying across the silent hallway. "You are currently being live-streamed to 6,700 viewers, including multiple law enforcement officers. You are holding what appears to be a weapon while threatening a fellow student. I suggest you reconsider your next actions very carefully." The mention of law enforcement viewers sent a ripple of panic through the crowd. Students began backing away, suddenly realizing they might be witnessing something with serious legal consequences. Brianna Walsh, who had been recording gleefully for her social media campaign, abruptly stopped filming and tried to disappear into the crowd. But Garrett was beyond rational thought. The humiliation of being thrown to the ground by a girl half his size had shattered his ego completely. He advanced on Savannah with the tactical pen raised like a knife, his face twisted with rage. "I don't care who's watching," he screamed. "You don't get to embarrass me and walk away." What he couldn't see was the police cruiser pulling into the school parking lot, or Detective Santos speaking urgently into her radio. "Units respond to Westfield Academy. Assault in progress. Suspect armed. Victim is live streaming the incident." What he also couldn't see was Principal Harrison running down the hallway, having been alerted by the school's security system that had detected the gathering crowd. Savannah's jiu-jitsu training kicked in again as Garrett lunged at her with the weapon. She sidestepped smoothly, grabbed his extended arm, and used a basic wrist control technique to disarm him. The tactical pen clattered to the floor as Garrett found himself face first against the lockers, his arm twisted behind his back in a perfect restraint hold. Lance, still dazed from his earlier fall, made a half-hearted attempt to help his friend, but stopped when he saw Savannah's eyes. "I wouldn't," she said quietly, maintaining her hold on Garrett while keeping her phone perfectly steady. "You're already looking at assault charges. Don't make it worse." Her live stream had now reached over 8,000 viewers, with law enforcement accounts from across the country sharing the feed and commenting on the proper techniques she was using to defend herself. That's when the cavalry arrived. Principal Harrison burst through the crowd first, his face pale as he took in the scene. His vice principal's son restrained against the lockers by a scholarship student, weapons on the floor, and hundreds of students recording everything. Behind him came Detective Santos and two uniformed officers, their presence immediately shifting the atmosphere from chaotic entertainment to serious legal proceeding. "Nobody move," Detective Santos commanded, her hand resting on her service weapon as she assessed the situation. "Young lady, please step away from the suspect and keep your hands visible." Savannah immediately released Garrett and stepped back, her phone still recording everything. The detective's next words would become part of viral internet history. "Is this the assault we've been watching on live stream?" "Yes, ma'am," Savannah replied with perfect politeness. "I've been documenting 3 weeks of escalating harassment, culminating in today's physical assault. All evidence has been automatically backed up to secure servers with legal time stamps." She gestured to the tactical pen on the floor. That weapon was drawn with intent to cause bodily harm after the subject threatened to, quote, "make me wish I'd never been born." Garrett finally seemed to understand the magnitude of his situation. With police officers surrounding him and his assault broadcast to thousands of viewers, his father's protection couldn't save him. "This is nonsense," he protested weakly. "She attacked us first. She's the one with martial arts training." Detective Santos picked up the tactical pen with a gloved hand, examining it carefully. "Son, I've been watching this incident unfold live for the past 10 minutes. What I saw was you and your friend physically assault this young woman, followed by you threatening her with a weapon. The entire incident is documented with legal-grade evidence." She turned to her fellow officers. "Read them their rights." As handcuffs clicked around Garrett's wrists, the reality of the situation finally penetrated the crowd of onlookers. This wasn't just school drama anymore. It was a criminal case that would follow these boys for the rest of their lives. Lance Rodriguez found himself in handcuffs moments later, his football scholarship evaporating along with his future college prospects. Principal Harrison stood frozen, realizing that his school's reputation was being destroyed in real time by a viral live stream. Vice Principal Sullivan arrived just in time to see his son being led away in handcuffs, his face cycling through shock, rage, and dawning horror as he understood that his career was likely over as well. But the consequences extended far beyond the immediate arrests. Savannah's 3 weeks of documented evidence revealed a pattern of institutional failure that went straight to the top. The civil rights attorney she had contacted arrived within the hour, armed with subpoenas for the school's disciplinary records, surveillance footage, and communication logs. What they uncovered was a systematic pattern of protecting privileged students while ignoring victims. The live stream continued, even as police processed the scene, reaching over 12 million viewers as news outlets picked up the story. The hashtag #SaveSavannah began trending worldwide. But more importantly, a Save Every Victim started gaining traction as other students from elite schools shared their own stories of institutional protection for bullies with the right last names. Federal investigators arrived the following week, armed with warrants and a mandate to examine whether Westfield Academy had violated federal civil rights laws by maintaining a discriminatory disciplinary system. What they found was damning. A clear pattern of lenient treatment for wealthy students and harsh punishment for scholarship recipients, detailed in emails between administrators that would become evidence in multiple lawsuits. Garrett Sullivan was charged with aggravated assault, terroristic threatening, and possession of a prohibited weapon on school grounds. Lance Rodriguez faced assault charges and conspiracy. Both boys were expelled immediately, their college prospects destroyed by criminal records and viral infamy. But perhaps most significantly, Vice Principal Sullivan was arrested on charges of civil rights violations and conspiracy to deprive citizens of their constitutional rights. The school board, facing federal investigation and massive civil liability, voted unanimously to terminate Principal Harrison and implement comprehensive reforms. Savannah's live stream had accomplished something that years of complaints and protests had failed to achieve: real, systemic change backed by legal consequences. 6 months later, Savannah stood before a congressional subcommittee examining violence in schools. Her story, having sparked national legislation requiring schools to maintain transparent disciplinary records and mandating training for staff on recognizing and preventing systematic harassment. But, as she finished her testimony and stepped out of the Capitol building, her phone buzzed with a notification that made her pause. An email from an anonymous account, sent to an address she'd never given out publicly. The subject line read simply, "We need help." Inside was a video file and a brief message. "There are more schools like Westfield, more students like Garrett. We've been watching your methods. Will you teach us?" Attached was footage from what appeared to be another elite academy, showing a pattern of harassment eerily similar to what she had experienced. Savannah stared at the anonymous email on the Capitol steps, thinking about Garrett's 18-month sentence and his father's 5-year federal conviction. Her livestream app now had over 2 million followers, but what she saw in the attached video made her freeze. In the background, barely visible on a bulletin board, was her own Westfield portrait with a red X drawn across her face. The realization hit her like ice water. What happened at Westfield wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of something much larger. Her victory had exposed a network of privileged immunity that ran deeper than any single school. And now, she was a marked target. Closing her laptop, Savannah looked out at the city skyline, her reflection showing a young woman who had changed the world, but was only beginning to understand the true scope of the battle ahead. She whispered the words that had become her motto: "Some fights choose you whether you're ready or not."